Hey, 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 hey. It looks like we are ready to rock here. Boom, boom, boom. Unmuting, going into the playlist. Doom, 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 doom. Class, he'll teach every one of us. Okay. Oh yeah, that would be the additional one. Yeah, here we go. Class. Ah, he'll teach every one of us. Class. And there's not been more to win. All right, here we let's Hey, ho, guy, want it, ho, yeah, guy, want it, ho, guy, ho, guy, want it, ho, yeah, guy, want it, ho, guy, want it, ho, yeah, guy, want it, ho, guy, want it, ho, yeah, guy, want it, ho. Well, oh, guy, you want it, oh, hey, guy, you want it, oh, guy, you want it, oh, hey, guy, you want it, oh, hui, ah, hui, ah. So we are here on our broadcast day. This is actually the end of our first week that we're going to be as part of our class is the NBV3E World Views and Aspirations of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples in Canada, and we are just. As part of this week, we're going to be doing a little bit of a recap, going over our assignments for the first part, and but we need to start at the beginning before we get to the middle, and of course the end. So this is I'm Elliot Dockstader Wynn. I'm your teacher for this MVB3E course. Elliot.dockstader at hyphen win at nnec.on.ca. My number here is 807-737-1488, extension 2223. And of course, if you missed that, you'll have to just press pause on our little screen here that we have available through the YouTube site and the WASA playlist site, and you can look for my name and that course code to be able to catch up on some of these online courses. And when you go on there, you can actually see the QR code for the Zoom link to be able to catch some of this broadcast. And on the other side, we do that number that I gave you, the 1488, is the studio station slash Wassa Distance Education. That's the main line. We also have a toll free number, 1-800-667-3703. So, hello to everyone out there who are listening on 91.9 FM here in the greater Sioux Lookout area. We are broadcasting live from the downtown heart of Sioux Lookout on Front Street. If you look on that page, you can also find the fax numbers for our local number, the Ontario number, and the national number, and there's also web links and a QR code for the radio station. But if you are having trouble with any of that information, please, by all means, call the main line at the school, get a hold of somebody here, or get patched through to my extension, and then we can be able to go over some of the course material. And of course, you can get a hold of me through that email address, and we'll maintain our correspondence to all my students who have begun this course for this session, and those ones who are catching up, because I believe in you. We're talking about student success and excellence in academia, and so that's a little different than perfection. There is a really famous football coach for the Green Bay Packers, and he said that I don't want you to strive for perfection. I want you to strive for excellence. That means that you're pushing to excel in whatever you're doing, and that is an expectation where you're more or less trying to test yourself. And as part of that, I am also here to help you succeed in this course. And so we need to go back. Oh, hear that? The embers are burning, the fires are lit. And we need to go back to a traditional story here because this is part of the course. And well, this story is part of what's called our cosmology. You don't need to know that word. Just know that it is a word, cosmology. It means all the stuff that comes together to make our to develop our culture, and it's the like cosmos, like the infinite, the universe, all of that. It's almost borders into the metaphysical. So like everything that came into being that helps our culture be what it is today. And so this old story has to deal with the grandfather teachings. So long, long time ago, in a land far, far away, Turtle Island. Well, it's not even far away; it's right underneath us. But the human beings, I spoke about this, the origin of Sky Woman and the start of Turtle Island, and and the land as it came to be known, with the spirits of the animals and the animals that would be the descendants of those Ogama spirits. And the part of and one of the stories that comes out of that is the story of the original grandfathers. So those human beings, those first spirit beings that were on the land, were living here. They had an eternal sense of being and an eternal sense of connectedness to the land. And so the, and but they were starting to understand that their eternity was kind of getting they had become they'd reached the height of their civilization, of their being. They had all this knowledge. They were carrying this knowledge with them. They were carrying this understanding of the world around them. And the animals that were there, the spirit beings that were there, those Ogama spirits, the original spirits, were the same. And because the spirit the spirituality of the beings were so closely related to uh, Turtle Island, or the Earth, Shkakamakwe, and the and there was a connectedness with the Creator, Gajemnado. So this, so they said, well, you know, I don't know if I wouldn't call it bored, but I feel like there should be more to our existence than just being. You know, there's we need to figure out how we can interrelate to each other and help each other. And the beings were the human beings, and the spirit animals that were there, the beings of those the descendants. Um, they said, yeah, yeah, no, I feel like this we should we you know what, this isn't really a question for us, that this thing that's missing, we need to be able to talk to, we should you know, commune with Gajemnado, the great spirit, the creator, that creator energy that's around us all. And so they traveled and traveled and traveled to where they thought they should go. And and they were talking, and even the beings were speaking with the land itself, and even speaking that energy. The even the rock were speaking. We understand what you mean. And when so they all traveled, and the creator says, well, if you want to, because you are living a consistent life, there can be a time where you end, and you can come back. You can come back. You'll have to allow yourself to go through the stages of life, of aging and getting older. Like, you remember when you came into being, that you grew to be an adult, and then now you're just here, and they're just well, actually didn't grow to be an adult. You just were. They just were beings. And said, but there'll be a way that you can turn this into your own evolution. You'll have to allow the body that you're in to die, but your spirit, because your spirit is connected to me and to the world around us, you'll be able to have the option to come back, and you'll be able to live your life through in that pattern, and go through a life cycle. Their life cycle. Allow this body to die. I don't even can't even comprehend what that meant. And they're like, well, but then you'll be able to have children. Children, they're like, yeah, the little versions of you. And as you come back, you'll be able to teach them the things, so you'll be able to keep your life and your livelihood and your knowledge. And so the turtles were there, the human beings were there, and the rock was the rocks were there. And so the rocks, they were there on behalf of the land. The turtles were out there on behalf of the the animals, and the human beings were on behalf of the human beings. And so they said, well, we're gonna have to think about this. We're gonna have to go back. So they went back to their people, and oh, boop boop boop. The let's see where we are, just so you know. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah, here we go. Boop. Let's just jump back. We had to come back to the present. Okay, here we are. So we had to come back to. So now we're back. Hold on. I had to go grab some firewood, throw it back on the fire. Oh, boom. And so when so they the beings went back to their people, and they talked about it. They discussed what the creator had shared with them. And they said, well, I don't know, I'm scared, I don't know what that means, I'm not really sure. And they're like, well, there's going to be little beings like us, and we'll be able to teach them. And so they're saying, oh, okay, well, we'll agree. We'll let you speak on behalf of us. You're going to be the Ogama, the head person, the head man for our people and our nations, and you can go and speak to the creator on our behalf. So the turtles went, and the human beings went, and again, the stone of the earth, the rock of the earth went, and they said, the human beings said, yeah, we'll do it, we'll do it, we'll allow ourselves to go through this cycle that you're talking about. And as long as, and we understand, we have that full trust in the creator, and that 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 sense of spirit, we'll allow ourselves to go through that cycle and to begin again, and be able to come back, and then we'll be able to share our teachings and pass it down. And then the turtle said, on behalf of the animals, we agree to the same. We've talked to our nations, we're going to do it, we're going to pass it on. And the rocks said, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. On behalf of our people, we'll still allow a bunch of them to go in the winter months, to go to Spirit Council, but they'll always have to maintain their life. And as for us, we are going to maintain our eternity and be part of the land and part of this thing. But just so you know, as our part, we've decided to be the knowledge keepers and the carriers of those of those teachings, and of what we have. So if it ever is forgotten by the beings of the earth, we'll still carry that knowledge within us, and we'll be able to share that at the appropriate times. So that's where so the creator made it so. We are ho, guy ho, we are guy ho, we are ho, guy ho, you are ho, guy ho, we are guy ho, we are ho. So that's the story of how the grandfathers became the grandfathers and carried the grandfather teachings. People wonder why the grandfathers. They always say the stone of the earth, or the grandfather stones, or the grandfathers. Even when you're in ceremony, they carrying the stones or the hot rocks. If you're doing a sweat, they're the grandfathers, and the grandfathers, and it's funny because this is one of those interesting. little anecdotes about any of this because I'm gonna just shut off my fire here for a sec. Let's just jump back to where our boop boop boop. Oh, yeah. Where am I on here? I keep on. I got to figure out a better way to fold these over each other. Boop 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 boop. Hmm. Anyways, the so what the thing is that when we have these moments and as part of our history, uh, sometimes people dispel them as the mythologies and the legends and that. I don't even use the word mythology, but as a legend, as having an origin and a recognized origin, it counts as an origin story, particular to the creation of our culture, and it alters the way in which we see how that indigenous knowledge or indigenous worldview, Aboriginal worldview, is formed, right? When you talk about the grandfathers and the grandfather teachings, that's where that origin story of the rock holding the knowledge becomes an integral part of our culture. And people have heard that more than if you haven't heard it, surprise, there's the story. If you have heard it, that's the reason why the rocks are considered the grandfathers or the Mshomis of that knowledge. And and I was at a powwow. I was at a powwow and I was doing face painting, and I bill myself as the greatest face painter in the world. And kids love that. They'll line up. And so it was funny because when I was doing that, working away at the powwow, painting, doing face paints, all these little kids, they started bringing rocks. They start bringing rocks, and they're really patient. They get in a line, they just wait for their turn, and they start going and finding rocks, and they start lining them up beside the tent that I was in, the gazebo type thing, my little booth. And so they were lining up those rocks and they were waiting in line. And at the end of the day, they all went off and played, and it was, did whatever they did. But those rocks were there. And when I seen them, it reminded me of that story. Because if you think about when grandparents, they like watching little kids do their thing. They love watching and seeing kids have fun. So when I seen that, I was like automatically thinking about that, about the grandfathers and that energy, and they wanted to be there present when these kids were having fun and doing their thing, and it was a powwow, and their ceremony was involved, and it was just a really nice experience. And I think that there's something a little more than coincidence to any of that. So we are, but to go back to what our to our presentation here. Um, we have this is a visual mnemonic of a pathway of going through these steps, the seven grandfather teachings, and and how they relate to our life path and how we gain them. And sometimes in the recognition, this is you can look in the textbook on page 23, and there's reference to it, um, because these 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 different things are in different orders, right? And people don't understand that there's a lifeline teaching of the seven grandfather teachings too. But as for our purposes and in our text on page 23, you can see that the um, where the in the English translation, the grandfather teachings, we have wisdom, love, and I'm gonna skip that one, the next one. So for people listening, we're going wisdom, love, honesty, respect, humility, and truth. And the other one, the seventh one that's on here, and it's a little bit more of an expanded explanation, is bravery or courage. And how this was explained to me by elders that I was working with and through my travels and research. Actually, it wasn't even research. I don't want to call it research because I was just learning from elders, um, that bravery and courage is equivalent to humbleness. That Akadewin is this like is it's bravery and courage. People go, oh, he's really brave, and courage. They they're those bravery and courage are kind of closely related. But when you add in humbleness, it's the fact that that person had to go outside of themselves and humble themselves to be able to put themselves out there on behalf of the other people. And sometimes bravery and courage is a little bit blind. So you have to make those decisions. Um, we could even count in Socratic democracy here. Democracy was also a North American construct by indigenous people. It's the Senate and the Republic. Don't forget that there is the confederacies that and alliances. But also over in Europe, Socratic democracy said that a soldier should lead, right? That would be the abs- the, like the best choice for leadership would be a soldier because they understand what they have to sacrifice in order to do the job properly. And but also that's blind ambition too, because because if you're going into war, you know what you're going to do, and that sacrifice is always a component of that. Not to undercut, not to undercut um, the sacrifices that soldiers make. Don't get me wrong in this one, but as in reference to the seven grandfather teachings, that's part of it. That courage, the humbleness is understanding what you have to give up to be brave. And then so when we have these other things that are part of it, the honesty and respect and humility and truth, wisdom and love. And so we're going to have a little bit of a kind of a assignment that's around this. And if you want to give yourself a test on this is a fun little one that you can do. Get a piece of paper, read about it, research it, look at this chart. But if after the fact, just get a piece of paper and write down the seven grandfather teachings in a row, and whatever one you write first is probably prioritized in your mind, and the ones that you kind of are lower down are later on, kind of in almost in a it's kind of a Freudian thing, where you're writing your list out, and the ones you forget, that gives you a hint of what you might have to work on. And so and there's no way around that. I still do this little activity every once in a while to see if I can do it, and then I see where I'm prioritizing my my lineup, and uh, and this lineup isn't prioritized that way. I wasn't testing myself on this one. This is from the book, just so you know, and this is from our course packaging. So again, we're talking about Aboriginal worldview, and this Aboriginal worldview, this Indigenous worldview, as it's now thought about in academics and education, Indigenous worldview. If we go back to Anishinaabemowin, that Ejnabian, how I see things or the way I see it. And so I'm giving you these different kind of terms. Our book refers to it as Aboriginal worldview. Indigenous worldview is also you also use that for like when you're writing in your assignments, or just know that it's a phrase. And then that Ejinabian, you're not going to be tested on Anishinaabemowin, but it's also it relates to, instead of just seeing things, it's how I see things or the way I see it. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong or different or abstract. It means that how your interrelationship to the world around you is. And this is also, textbook page 4 to 8, and part of our lesson 1 in our course package. So if you want to take a look and have a little bit more material to to add to that. And our worldview is it integrates, like how I was mentioning before in the story. There's this sense of the physical world, our mind, body, and spirit. These three things are symbiotic within in indigenous worldview and aspirations, and this is one of the aspiration type things. This is a concept within the culture. Minobamadswin. It means to live in a good way. That mino is or mina bimadswin is the living, the good part of living in a good way. And so when we add that, but also on here because it's reflected in other cultures, that Konikon Rio is remembering to do things with a good mind. And this is peacemaker teachings from, actually, this one actually goes back to a very specific story that is dated at about 500 AD. So this is where we break from mythology, because I'm not a big fan of that. Stories without an origin, legends, a story with an origin, and true history, which we understand the use of these legends and stories as part of our culture. So this remembering to do things with a good mind, bringing a good mind to what you do, and I this even counts ties into when I was mentioning about excellence and the difference between perfection and excellence, because this is where you're choosing to put yourself on a path that you're leading yourself in a good way and you're making those good decisions. Now, I'm not here to criticize anybody's decisions either way, because everybody is on their own path. But this is where the philosophy of indigenous worldview is directly affected, to have things in place for us as a mnemonic to be able to and a mnemonic is something we have that reminds us of something else. Even my hat, even my jewelry is a type of mnemonic. Encoded things in our practical world, in our physical world, that can teach us about our culture and the world around us. So we're and we go into and this is part of what we've been covering so far with in the text, page 8, course pack, page 8, and they happen to correspond there. But well, in the text you can go from page 8 to 11, and we're talking about expressing worldviews. How do we get that across? How are we sharing, right? How are we being an example of the culture, and how are we able to do that? When with language and identity is bringing that Anishinaabemowin, or the Cree, or the Anishinaabe, the Oji Cree language, and finding identity to best understand who we are. So we even had a little mapping exercise earlier on about to kind of get a mind map of us and those things that affect who we are. So from us going outwards, from the micro to the macro, we have us in the middle, our family around us, our extended family, the people around us, the community around us, the landscape around us, and then even the interrelationship with the wide world as we go further and further out, and what affects those, right? And the changes to language are a little bit different, because we have there's modern language, because the language was that akinamage, the learning from the land, right? And the language came from the land, and that the language is that old. The vernacular, it's called, the way we talk is so connected to the origins of our language, that it's from the land. But now we have new things. We have hospitals, and we have I have a friend who works with specifically with law, and I know people who work with in medicine, in the medical profession. There was no handicap ramps back a long time ago, but so they have to. There's a development, and then there's even a slang that happens to language. So when people say "bamampi minuma," meaning I'll talk to you again, I'll talk to you again soon, or I'll talk to you another time. Um, it's people go "bama," and so when you change the language, you change the meaning of it, and understanding what the language means. When somebody says "nishi," or "nish," oh yeah, those are their niche. When that takes away from the meaning of Anishinaabe, which is the breath of life, living in a good way, and the coming together of spirit. Ah, nish na be be, like even from the drum, right? And so that's where we have this understanding and this expression of it. And I have this little picture, a little visual on here, showing an old elder sitting with his pipe inside of a teepee with people around listening to him. And this is the reason why I add this is because even though it's historical and recognition and recognizes that origin as a cultural component of our life and livelihood once upon a time, um, it also unfortunately becomes almost a caricature of the way people, the non-indigenous worldview, sees indigenous people of FNMI, First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people, of of when they think of Indians and Indian life, they think of teepees and wigwams and riding horses and shooting buffalo. I don't know, feathers and drums. So that's where the misconception is, because for our class, for community members, for people in our region, for or across Turtle Island, there's a very real and modern context in which we live in now. So when next is the Anzokanan or the Anzokonic. This is the translation of our knowledge base through sharing. So Anzokanan or Anzokanak, Tabachamuanin, the sharing of stories. When we use our storytelling, that's the main relation, and this is when people talk about the bardic or the oral tradition of speaking, but they're not thinking four dimensionally, because even the object, those visual mnemonics, have an encoded property to it. Even the beadwork itself has, you can be able to read it properly, and it's a type of language on its own. And then because Roman orthography, or a written language of the alphabet, was came is a European construct, but it was all of a sudden implied that because they're an alternate culture used that as a writing style, that automatically we didn't have that, so obviously we didn't write anything. But no, we didn't, because we had to ingrain practical application and our relationship with the land in being able to share our knowledge. So at any time. And then what types of stories are there? And this might sound repetitive for people who are burning through the course videos, or who have been keeping up as we've been going along. But this is a previous slide. So we have those stories again: legends, true history. I mentioned about that. And what kind of true history are they? Creation stories, trickster stories, origin stories, and teaching stories. And we have these set out in a cycle. We're going to be talking about this next week in the week 2 of this program, when we go further into the medicine wheel teachings, because that automatically lends itself to seasonal change, and what we are supposed to be doing and supposed to be learning as we're going through that cycle. And how does it affect? How does it affect? When we talk about our values, beliefs, attitudes, and aspirations, this is from the text from page 7. Like this is kind of giving us a better idea of, like, the different areas of kind of a culture, and values and beliefs are a little bit, they're a little bit different. Because values are how people think you should act, or what what is how is wealth valued. Okay, so this is a tricky one, because I'm not always 100% about our textbook, and you definitely, as a learner, as a student learner, can also have that little bit of teacher in you where you're going, I don't agree with that, and you can tell me why. And I would greatly appreciate that. And for those people living in the wide world and listening on 91.9, of course, when we hear that as a one of the components of this course is, how is wealth valued? How was it? Is it the physical matter of wealth and the collection of things? Is it spiritual wealth? Is it mental wealth? Those things are different, and that's where we have to decide how we are. Actually, you know what? When I say these things outside, and I or outside, like outwards to the wide world, to the viewers of this of our class, and out into the wide world, even on the show in Digital Voices, I it feeds my spirit, because then it makes me understand a little bit deeper about what these conversations need to entail. So when we get to beliefs, how do people express their beliefs? What beliefs do people share? And this is also when we talk about worldview, this is part of it. How do we share those things? And there's a thing called cognitive dissonance. This is the way when we're thinking, when something's bugging us, and we feel dissonance is not jiving. The wavelengths are not working together. And when you have cognitive dissonance, it means something disturbs you, and you need to try to figure out how to calm yourself down. And when you have indigenous worldview cognitive dissonance, it means you just can't figure out what indigenous worldview means. And I've had people go, well, yeah, I could study it, I could do it, Yeah, or that's what you believe. I believe something else. It's that cognitive dissonance is, and especially not understanding worldview. That's where they're not allowing because it disrupts your own energy, and our belief system. And again, this is the thing, you don't have to remember all that. I'm just adding to your knowledge base, but knowing that different worldviews collide and they don't always overlap, and the resistance to trying to understand another one, that's where we have indigenous worldview and non-indigenous worldview. And um, and it's not and just to be clear for everybody out there too, it's not just Indians versus non-Indian people. It's people who are understand the worldview and don't understand the worldview, right? So there's also First Nations people who, through history of enfranchisement and assimilation, don't completely embrace indigenous worldview. And there's people who have just been so far out of the culture that they don't have a connection to it. And we're going to get to the historical later on in this course. Well, attitudes and feelings towards special different things and aspirations. What are we gaining? And this is going to be a question that's going to be later on in part of one of the key questions. And this is just something, one of those things to think about as we go through. See, in this is the visual that I was talking about. That in text page 6, course pack page 3, and you can see how your worldview is affected by the things around you. We're not going to go. We did kind of go through this a little bit more previously, but again, it's really uh, particular to who you are. And so we have, how is worldview taught, and the mainstream part of it is just the easy part of this. If you want to stop it for a second and take a look at this and just let it soak in, mainstream education versus indigenous knowledge inclusion. For the most part, mainstream education is there's education of the school, the experiential learning of going to school and learning it, and then there's the teacher learner dynamic of being part of this. And in our little triangle of connectedness, indigenous worldview is one of them. So education at the top, experiential learning, the bottom right corner, and in the bottom left corner, indigenous worldview. And because I put it there specifically because it's its own thing separate from education, right? It's a curriculum, it's a addition, it's a portion that's added on. And when you get older, you don't even have to take courses in indigenous knowledge. Well, it's kind of getting a little more mandatory now with indigenous studies in schools. So obviously, you're taking my course, so keep taking it. but it's an addition. And when we get to further on, it becomes a little bit different when we're that Anabian or we're facilitating indigenous knowledge or Aboriginal worldview, because we have the participant and the storyteller and the story, and those things together are can trade. Whereas the teacher and the learner were in the middle before, now the storyteller and the participant are learning from each other, and they're accessing different parts of their connectedness through storytelling. And so we have, when we think of it more like that Anishinaabe, the way I see things, um, the Aboriginal worldview or Indigenous worldview, the participant accesses emotion. They feel it. They feel the story. They connect with spirit. I'm going to be talking about this again as we go through and bringing this back, as just so we can see how it impresses upon us, our connectedness to the story and the storytelling and our learning. So if you're here, if you listen to it and I tell a story or I tell something and you go, oh man, I didn't even know. I felt it. Oh, and this is where I should probably offer a little bit of health, holistic care to the people who are listening out in the wide world on 91.9, or who are accessing the website playlist for the classes and for my students. If you feel at all triggered or emotively overwhelmed by some of the things that we're going to be sharing through this course, because a lot of it does have to deal with culture and the loss of culture and the reclamation of culture. Um, if you feel that, then please access, talk to your friend, talk to your family, talk to your grandparents, talk to an elder, talk to somebody in your community, somebody that you feel like who could uh, a counselor or somebody who's facilitating what you're learning, or wherever you are, and by all means access them. And you need to bring your body into holistic on that holistic journey too, because sometimes it's a lot. Sometimes it's a lot, and I just want you to know that I I want you to come back. I want you to learn this stuff. So when we go through our medicine wheel, we had our we're going to be talking about the medicine wheel a little bit more in depth next week, and then we go to our seven grandfather teachings again. And there's an assignment here. Our key question number one, and this is worth 30 marks, is to create a family tree. There's some of my students who are already who've already done this assignment. There's a little bit of modifications on here just for clarity. It's pretty much the same assignment, so don't be scared. And if you've already handed it in, check marks for you, because I'll still mark it the same. It'll still be worth the same percentage mark. But for those new students who are coming in and seeing this, this is where you're going to be able to hopefully be able to work through this a little bit easier. And so you create a family tree, attach all of your members of your family using lines that show parents and children, family tree. And use symbols showing the different genders. You can make up whatever symbol you want. You could do stick people. You could do little different kind of animals. You can do little trees. You can, do Detroit versus the Toronto Maple Leafs, or it's really up to you. It's really up to you however you want to do this. X's and O's for that matter. Under each person include where they were born. And this is kind of like a research-based project, so it's really up to you on the information you can get. But if you have these conversations with your parents or your family, you should be able to get a lot of it. So you have the person's name, where they were born, maybe what their job was. The writing in the original assignment is, example as a trapper or a housewife, but it doesn't have to be relegated to that. You could even refer to them as, oh, they were really good at making moccasins, because that would mean they were an artist and a craftsperson. It's really up to you how you want to identify the people in your family, and how they fit into this family tree. And you can include the person's date of birth, born, whenever they're born, and then they're or born and died. Like sometimes you see that in family trees, or DOB, date of birth. And but the way that you can hand this in is to be able to write, record, or create a clip and tell the history of your family. Where you can draw this all out. Feel free to draw it all out. It'd be great to see, but I would like to see how, because not for writing and recording our information, if you would like to just create like an audio clip that goes with it, with a little bit of an explanation, I am completely open to that. Please keep it within a 5 to 10 minute range. I'm pretty sure you can go through your family tree and just talk it out. Maybe even 3 minutes. But tell this history of your family. Was there anything surprising? What you learned, and what is life like for your family now? And your family or extended family or your caregivers. I want to be very specific with that, because everybody's on their own path, and they all and under in their own experience. And I had a little helpful hint here for those people who are listening in audio, or who downloaded this and are listening to it while they're traveling. But not sure where to start? Use the internet. If you want to see what a family tree looks like, if you're he kind of glossed over it a little bit. There's examples in the course package that you can take a look at, exemplars, as they say. And so you can see, and if you want a better idea of how to do it, rewind, go back 5 minutes in this recording, and you can make some notes. Our key question number 2 is we're gonna is in for this portion of it, is find a news article and find out we're gonna tear it apart a little bit, because there is one that's part of the course package, and then you can in the text, page 8. But I want you to find a little article and find out the points of view expressed in the article, what beliefs or attitude is expressed, and you'd be like, it's about pollution, and they agree that it's bad, and they agree that something should be done. And is it balanced? Is it just only one side talking more than the other one? And how is that biased? See, you can see there's 5 points here, 10 marks, two little marks each for each one. This one's a quick one. I would also accept if you want to write it out full essay style. That's really at your discretion. I'm not an English class, but if you would like to write down your point form notations with each of those answers, just so I can understand it. And by all means, for my students, I actually do a number of proofreads when I do any kind of assignment, even for myself. So read over your points and say it out loud, and it should make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, rewrite it. But it shouldn't. This one's not a brain buster, as they say. But picking the article that you're going to use, by all means, and you need to be able to have a copy of that for me so I can see. Uh, Key question number 3. This is five little questions, 5 little marks. So, cause and effect, incidences outside of the community. So, when we talk about Indigenous community and impacts of the wide world, um, choose an issue in the world that affects Indigenous people and culture. And what effect does it have in your life? What is the difference between, and this is, you don't even have to, this is something that just comes to mind, something that you know that affects Indigenous people and affects our worldview. You know, and this is the autoethnographic, they call it, where you're writing from your own personal experience. And this is 5 little questions, 5 little sentences, and, you know, and so how does it affect your life? What is the difference between Indigenous worldview and a non-Indigenous worldview? And describe whether there is a difference. You know, it could be something like, you know, just off the top of my head, global warming. So is there a difference? No, everybody agrees that it's bad. So, well, not everybody. There's a particular leader south of the border who said, wow, it's cold today. What do you think of that? Boom. We're not going to mention any names on that one. Uh, but as we're heading towards our, this is the, in regards to the 7 grandfathers teachings on page 23, key question number 4. This is worth another 10 marks. You know what? We're gonna talk about this as we go, and to think about, because this is kind of like what's already existed in the course package. So these questions, how it's written here, is a little bit modified, but generally it's for the same thing. And without looking, this is what we're talking. Remember the little exercise I was talking about? Without looking at, write out the 7 grandfather teachings, and the list does not have to be complete. So whatever the ones you first thought of, write those down. Try to. I'm guessing you could come up with one more than one, but just oh, there's a little bit of the spirits are with us today. You know, uh, why that? And for those people who are just listening, my camera got knocked, so it's giving me the hint that it's almost time to wrap things up. So reflect on the first one on your list. Why was that one the first one that came to mind? What does it remind you of? And how might you include this teaching in your everyday life? So that's kind of a more of a reflective one. And we're back to our fire. And, oh, just walking back in the house after sitting by the fire. Uh, but we are coming to the end of our day, so I just want to go back to my connect screen here for anybody who's listening on the wide world. I'm Elliot Dockstader Wynn. I'm the teacher for NBV3E here at WASA Distance Education Center in Sioux Lookout at the downtown offices at 74 Front, the downtown heart of Sioux Lookout. Here we go, and it's like heart color. It's the big red building. So that's because we're feeling the love, we're bringing it. So you can contact me at elliot.dockstader-win@nnac.on.ca. And the number here is 807-737-1488. I'm at extension 2223. And of course, you can get us at those links at any time. So, miigwech for being here, and Bamampi Minawa, Guabmin.